Hey loves, it's Britt, and in this video, I'm talking about Mercury conjunct to Saturn in Synastry. So, this aspect shows that there's a seriousness in the communication between these two people. It actually can work really well for a business relationship or, even any kind of relationship where you end up focusing on serious things pertaining to the sign of Mercury and the natal placement of the Mercury and Saturn in your own natal chart. So whatever sign and like houses that are affected in this conjunction are definitely like a serious theme in this relationship. So it is kind of a more heavy aspect to see in synastry, but it can show that there is a lot of care and a lot of duty towards each other. Specifically, the Saturn person can feel a very strong sense of like almost like a need to have karmic retribution towards the Mercury person. It's like they can feel the Mercury person as like a karmic debt or someone that they must teach or they must guide because it's important for them to do so. It's almost like parental coming from the Saturn person. Now, the Mercury person also does feel that karmic energy towards the Saturn person, but they almost look up to the Saturn person more. They're more like the student, or they're more like the child looking for parental approval. And it's really interesting to see this aspect in relationships where there's an age difference, where the Saturn person is actually younger, because in this case, the Saturn person seems so much older. And the Mercury person will often come to the Saturn person for guidance. It's very interesting to see in parent child as well, with the Saturn person being the child, they end up kind of parenting the parent, which is a very interesting dynamic. So, yeah, the Saturn person usually exerts a sort of parental influence or even fatherly influence. One of the books says, one of my favorite books actually says that, yeah, the Mercury person looks to the Saturn person like, "Daddy, teach me," right? And they're working out father issues. They're working out, um, you know, wherever they were maybe, because Mercury can be kind of a more flaky energy. Mercury can be, not super focused, a little bit. Mercury's like childlike, and so that kind of scatteredness or even a naive energy that they may have in this relationship with the Saturn person, they are working through that, and it's almost like deepening their mind. They're allowing their mind to become more mature, right? They're growing, they're learning, they're maturing in this relationship. So depending on the nature of the Saturn person's Saturn and, how open the Mercury person is to that energy, this conjunction can be either extremely difficult or just moderately difficult with, more benefit. It's hard to say because Mercury doesn't always like the authority or the advice of Saturn. It can feel cold, it can feel harsh, it can feel unloving when it's not coming from an unloving place. It's just the way that Mercury makes Saturn feel sometimes is like an eye roll. Like when Mercury talks and Mercury is, going about their day to day life with all the mercurial things that they do, the Saturn person is like, you need help. Like, they can get kind of judgy, and you know it can be hard on the Mercury person, and it can be hard on the Saturn person too, because they might not want this burden of guiding the Mercury person. They might not even realize they're doing it, but yet they do it because the conjunction is the strongest aspect here between, any of the aspects. And it does have more of a potential to work favorably than the hard aspects, but it's still very hard because Mercury and Saturn are two very differing energies, and this one is not going to always feel good, but there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of growth, right? There's a lot of karma being worked out here. It's almost like there could have been a parental role in a previous lifetime, or maybe even a sibling relationship. There's something here to be worked out. The Mercury person is going to learn how to be more effective, more successful, more grounded. And the Saturn person can learn to lighten up because the Saturn person sometimes feels deeply insecure in the presence of Mercury because Mercury actually has this intelligence or has this sociability or has this kind of dexterity, even. Like that's kind of a mercurial quality where, they could be really good at certain things that Saturn feels very rigid in. Saturn feels like maybe Saturn's good, but Saturn doesn't have the confidence. Saturn has fear, right? And you want to look at the sign that this conjunction is taking place in, and the house too, that for the Saturn person, that's like where the fear is. That's where they feel deeply insecure and, need to learn a lesson. So they could almost even at times be a little bit jealous of the Mercury person while still judging them and thinking, they need to learn some lessons, but at the same time, they do kind of envy their freedom and their lightness. And so, if Saturn can allow it, they can also learn from Mercury. Mercury can teach Saturn how to lighten up and be more free and have more fun and be more open to things. And Saturn is teaching Mercury as well how to deepen and, stick to it, even when things are hard or, even when they're going off on many tangents. Saturn can help Mercury focus. And this one, it can, like I said, it can be good for business relationships. There is a very business-like quality to the interaction, even if you've got other Jupiter stuff going on. If you have this aspect, there's always going to be this sort of cordial, like almost slowness, or even it can show fear too in communicating. Like the Saturn person can feel really like, oh, I don't want to be too hard on them, but like I have to say something. And like the Mercury person can feel like, oh, I don't want to tell them because I don't want to be judged. And so we can definitely see communication blocks with this aspect, or a closing of the throat chakra. And you want to keep it open when you have this aspect. You want to just share, even though it's hard, even though it hurts, even though it's painful to share what's on your mind and heart. You want to keep that flow going and realize that even though this relationship feels super judgy and Saturn is like this judging parent at times, they really do care, right? And that's why they react like that, right? And Saturn needs to learn too that Mercury maybe doesn't need as much guidance as they feel that they do, and that actually Mercury can teach them a thing or two as well. And yeah, that sign that this conjunction is taking place in is going through an overhaul, a karmic lesson, a collapse, even like from dark to light or from fear to faith. So it's a very powerful one to see. It definitely has that teacher student vibe. It definitely has a serious vibe where, we're communicating about practical matters, or we're communicating in a more cool or restrained way. But this can be an aspect that shows longevity and, true caring between two people, because that's the thing about Saturn aspects, is that they're not called the glue in synastry for no reason. Saturn wants to work out the lesson, and that is why when there is a strong level of Saturn in a relationship, it can feel impossible to break it off. And this aspect can show that as well. There's such a strong bond, there's such a sticky glue karmic energy here that it can be hard. Um, if this was coexisting with a bunch of other really difficult aspects, it might be hard for the people to break it off, even though they know that they must, because it's not. If this aspect is on its own and there's not other happier things, this is a very dreary conjunction. So, yeah, you'd want to have it with some more fun aspects, but it can be excellent for like getting down to business and getting serious and getting focused. And they can really both help each other out a lot in the ways that I've said. So, yeah, I'd love to know your experience of this aspect. If you've had it in Sinistry, was it like this? Was it not like this? Let me know in the comments, you guys, and keep your requests coming. We'll talk soon. Okay, bye.